we've tied it to having an offer or a program agreement before you can have apply for the funding. So how critical are the CHODO operating grants? Again, it's 1 is not critical and 5 is very critical. And just like we've done in the other sections, do you have any comments or suggestions related to CHODO operating?
Francais Wardlaw, Project Faith, King George. Mine is kind of a double comment from the multifamily rental development and that being delivered by CHODOs. It is historically harder for a CHODO to get a project off the ground because of the limited resources, smaller staffs, and just, you know, just trying to make it from day to day. I really, and trying to be competitive in tax credit applications as far as offering Earthcraft certification for units, universal design. All of those things are taxing on a project. And when it comes to developers' fees, many times the developers' fees are put back into the project just to, not all of them, but a great deal of them, because you become the flex loan. To that end, I would like to see some preference to CHODOs that are doing the right thing, trying to offer a very good housing product that's relevant to affordability, and trying to just keep their head above water. So I think it is very critical for those people that are offering that type of stewardship.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Gary?
I think there's some special need areas where we have some critical capacity shortages, at least in certain parts of the state. I'd like to see some preference of this funding going to help, you know, trying to help build or backfill some of those.
You mean like developers that are doing special needs?
Right. I mean, there's certain, you know, key, you know, special need priorities that are difficult to make any progress on at the state level before, but there simply isn't the capacity at the nonprofit levels moving forward.
Okay.
I'm sorry, can you kind of give me a nugget on that?
Well, I mean, an example now, I mean, there's a, you know, clear, you know, priority on, you know, permanent supportive housing, and yet that's an area where we know that there's, you know, capacity constraints in terms of organizations that have the, you know, ability to carry forward those kind of projects.
You want me to translate for Shane?
Yeah, because I'm not, you're talking about special needs and capacity. You want us to target CHODO support to
CHODOs that are serving, you know, some of the, you know, these, you know, priority special needs where we don't currently have adequate capacity.
Right. So, for instance, for CHODOs that are actually working on special needs or permanent supportive housing projects.
But more even specific to that, where we have capacity,
Okay.
you know, where they're increasing in need of capacity.
I appreciate him saying that, because it's your CHODOs that are going to go out and really try to develop housing for persons with disabilities and those that really need the affordability. They wear their mission on their sleeve, as Project Faith does. So I can appreciate you saying that. Thank you very much.
Okay, and did we have somebody else? Yes.
It's Allison with Virginia Supportive Housing, and I think about 6 months ago we had a session at downtown at DHCD, and we talked about having a state-certified CHODO process that was being redone, and we would be really interested in knowing where that is, or following up to see if there was a process.
that application should be available now.
Yeah, it's posted online.
We can certainly make sure we
yeah.
do. But yes, we did. We had that that session. We revamped the certification requirements, and hopefully to try and incentivize some folks to get involved in some special needs targeted housing that in the past, you know, they've chosen not to. So.
Out of curiosity, how did the notice of that go out? Because we were not, we did not receive any notice of that.
Well, what she's referring to is part of the input session specific to the affordable special needs housing. So it was not specific to CHODOs. It was specific to the affordable special, our rental development, which we do for our DPA program. For all the programs that are currently existing, we have input sessions specific to the programs. And so what we had talked about at one of those was basically trying to expand the pool of certified CHODOs. So it wasn't specifically a notice that went out about CHODO certification.
Right,
Yeah.
and this is actually, I mean, and it's online, but part of it stems from the fact that we had kind of a, not really a monitoring, but we had a review of a lot of our processes, and if you are currently a CHODO with us, you probably have received something from us that's asking for some more documentation.
No.
And the recertification hopefully will make sure that you have, we have to make sure for HUD that we have on site all the documentation that we need. And when we reviewed that, we discovered that just checking something was not sufficient, that we needed to have the source documentation go with it. So you should have, and you're saying no.
No, I
But-
haven't had anything
but
on a
we'll
CHODO.
check.
So, well, we will follow up with you, Abbott, on that.
Yeah.
And and let me just be clear, it's really just a matter of, we need some additional documentation in our files. And so it doesn't really impact those folks who have been CHODOs previously, but going forward, we're gonna need some additional documentation, so.
Right, and we understand that. We were told that to expect that. I just haven't seen anything, so it makes me nervous when I don't.
Okay.
Well, then, your letter got lost in the mail, but you will get another one.
The other thing that's, and I don't want to get too far off track, but the other thing of note here is that one of the things that Lindsay touched on at the beginning of this is, for those of you who haven't had a chance to review and evaluate the proposed changes to the home rule, one of the areas that they have really focused on is CHODO capacity. And they've actually asked states, PJs, and localities to examine those, what they call non-performing CHODOs, and get them off of your books. And then identify those CHODOs who are currently performing and evaluate their continued capacity, both financial and production-wise, to continue. So that's a very real aspect that is not just a state issue, but as part of that proposed home rule. Clearly, it wouldn't be included in there if the whole issue of CHODOs across the country was not an issue.
And I'll be even a little blunter than Willie and say that that requirement in the proposed home regulations requires us to make a certification about your capacity as a CHODO, which means that we're going to want to have a higher comfort level perhaps than we've had in the past, because we're going to be asked to sign on the dotted line on about you all. And so we're going to be learning more about that hopefully in March when we get some training, but you know, expect to hear more about that in the future. And we aren't any happier about it than you guys are.
Anything else related to CHODOs? Okay, and then the other kind of special pool of funding that we set aside is another CHODO pool of funding. You have to be a certified CHODO to access it. It's to be reimbursed for pre-development costs. We've set it up on a quarterly application cycle. We, to date, have not reviewed any pre-development applications. It was up to, we wrote it for up to $30,000 in pre-development costs. It must result in a home project. So that's something we did. It was years ago. It was before I started. So more than 5 years ago, it was there was some pre-development activity that we were funding, but we put that on hold because I don't know that it was executed all that well. And
Well, bottom line is we had done pre-development for several projects, and about 5 years ago, we ended up, DHCD, out of non-federal funds, had to repay, I think it was 2 pre-development grants that we had made to CHODOs that had not come forward with an eligible home project. So to say that we got a little nervous is an understatement, because it's hard for us to come up with that non-federal money to repay things with. So we decided not to do pre-development for a while, but in the past year and a half, as we developed the governor's housing policy.